Which were some of our favorite projects that we've ever worked on? Coming up. Hello and welcome back to the Freelanceverse. Thanks for being here. Thanks for coming back to the channel once again. Someone else is coming back to the channel for the third time. I have Belinda with me. Hi B, thanks for coming on the channel.
Hi Adi.
A couple of months ago now, or maybe even a year, I don't even know when it was, we talked about our 3 biggest mistakes that we made in our freelance career. Today it's the new season, so we want to stay positive, so we're going to talk about our 3 favorite projects that we've ever worked on. And I would say that's why you guys clicked on the video, so let's get straight into it. Are you ready, B?
Let's get into it.
Okay, I'm gonna kick things off with my favorite project by far that I've ever worked on. I've talked about this already on the channel once in, I don't know in which video it was, but it definitely came up because it is always on the top of my highlights lists, and it has been a while now. This must have been like pre-COVID. This must have been like 2019, 2020. And I was able to work on a children's book. I did the Swiss-German translation for it that then was published, and that's actually a book now, and a very popular book as well. And it was cool because after I finished, I got sent, I think, 3 copies from the book, so I could give actually one of the books to my nieces at the time, and one I kept here. I can't find it. I tried to find it somewhere here, but anyways, it was a super cool project. Very short text, you know, because of course it was for kids, so it was kind of like a comic book, but then very short texts. But the cool thing is that the texts in English were rhymes, so of course they had to rhyme in Swiss German as well. And I have never done that before previously, and I told my client that I have never done that before, but I had some I had connection to them, so they knew me and they knew of my capabilities, and they said, yeah, let's give it a shot. I'm sure it's going to be fine. And I spent a lot of time on it. Luckily, it was paid by the hour because you had to, of course, rework it all the time. And, you know, Swiss dialect, if you have watched my Swiss German video, is very dependent on where you are from. So we had to make a choice to make it as neutral as possible to include the whole country. But of course, you still had to make some decisions. In the end, we went for that some kids had different accents than the others, you know, so you can kind of play on some regional things as well there. And yeah, it was just really cool to then hold it in my hands at the end and like writing for kids. Of course, mostly adults would read it to kids, so you need to find a balance between kids understanding and adults still having fun reading it to the kids. It was a very challenging project, but it always will stick in my mind as my #1 favorite project. Now, B, tell us about your top project you've ever worked on.
Okay, so the first project that I really loved working on, and it was both one of my proudest and one of my most challenging projects, is this one right here. It's the One Design magazine for the European hotel chain Motel One, and it's the 15th edition. They come out with this magazine every 6 months. And basically, it's a bilingual magazine. It has a lot of information about different cities with Motel One locations. But the main kind of theme and why it's called One Design is because it always talks about how each individual hotel interior is designed differently to suit the surroundings of the city that it's in. And so it often talks about like where different chairs are from. There's like interviews with interior designers and architects and artists. And the content was just my absolute dream. I absolutely love to work on interior and design content, anything to do with patterns and colors and materials and anything that just makes a room feel like wow, you know, when you walk in. That's really my jam. I'll link something down below where I talk about how this project came to be, because I talked about that on a podcast. But in terms of how the project went and why it was my favorite, like I just said, the content played a big role. It was also a kind of a cool collaboration between the marketing manager at Motel One and then the content team at a content agency based in Munich called Storyboard. So I worked closely with both of them to make this magazine happen. I actually worked in an Adobe InDesign file. It was very challenging. It was doable, but oof, it involved quite a lot of editing and design and formatting and that kind of stuff. And we did have a super tight deadline. I think it was 10 days for an entire magazine with, how many pages does it have? 60 pages. So it was definitely one of the more challenging projects I've ever done in my 5 years of freelancing, but it was so much fun, and I get to like have something to show, which is very rare because most of the work that I do is web-based, and so it was really cool to work on an editorial print project. Yeah. Well, why don't you go ahead and tell us about one of your favorite projects? I'm super excited to hear about it.
Sure. So my second one is actually like a larger project I've worked on for like 2 weeks. It wasn't a single translation, but I was able in the winter of 2020 to be the top, like the German lead for the Winter Youth Olympics in Lausanne in Switzerland. And that was honestly such a cool experience. I was supposed to go there, but then this was also the start of COVID. So in the end, like it was still pre-COVID, but I didn't do a trip then in the end. But I was following it here like all the time, and I was really in charge of not only translating but also adapting it to different regions, like distributing the jobs between the German team, etc. And yeah, I was so involved. That's when I first realized, okay, winter sports is really my niche. This is where I want to be, where I want to specialize in. I loved it. So many new disciplines that I usually don't follow, but I had to very quickly learn the German jargon language about these sports, of course. And it's just cool to be part of a Youth Olympics because you get to know players or athletes that then make it very big and become actual Olympians. Well, they are already actual Olympians. How do you say that? Like senior Olympians instead of junior Olympians. So it was really cool. It felt very refreshing, very future oriented, and I loved this project. It was really cool. Back to you, B.
Then number 2 of my 3 favorite projects that we're going to talk about today in this video is not so much actually a translation or transcreation project, which most of my work is, but this one was actually kind of like a brainstorming exercise. It was about finding the right slogan for one of my clients. They were doing a company run and they wanted to make a t-shirt. And for that t-shirt, they wanted to have a nice slogan. And this is the final version. It says, work online and sweat offline. This little like plus symbol or link, it's like it has a double meaning, and it's part of their logo. The company is called Unite, and it was just really, really fun because I basically got to work with the marketing team, internal communications team. And all of them are German because the company is German. They're based in Germany, even though they have European-wide locations, and their language is both English and German, like official language of the company. But they wanted to go for an English slogan for this t-shirt for the company run, and so they had already come up amongst themselves with a whole list of options that came out from like an internal brainstorming session, and then they wanted like a native speaker. And like the fact that they always tell me I have like creative input, which I really appreciate, and I love working on projects like that.
My last project that I want to talk about was a very visible one. Always when something is very visible, it feels more important kind of because so many eyes will see it, right? And I actually was able to work on a TV ad that was run not only in Switzerland but also in Austria and Germany, so in all 3 major German-speaking countries, and it was a TV ad for a car brand. I was mainly involved for the one in Switzerland. It was the same ad, just different subtitles. So the car brand decided to run the ad in English in all German-speaking countries with German subtitles. They wanted to have this kind of mystic, this fresh perspective, so they kept it in English. I was also part of the not negotiations, how do you say that? Like I was consulting a bit, and my advice would have been to dub it in German for Switzerland, but they wanted to keep this international English vibe with German subtitles, so we went for that in the end. And it's just really cool, like when suddenly I'm visiting my family and we're watching TV at home, and then the ad comes on, And you can say, hey, I've done this text, like I've heavily worked on this. Of course, it's never exactly you that does the translation or does the proofreading, because there are so many people involved. But in the end, I gave a lot of input about the language of this ad, and it's just cool to see it then on screen. So that was cool, and it kind of gives social proof as well for other people that sometimes don't really understand what we are doing as translators. And then when you can show them, like, okay, I worked heavily on this, like 12 seconds clip, they understand that translation is not so straightforward as you know, putting one word into the other language, but it's a whole ecosystem. And if you want to properly localize an ad campaign, it takes a lot of time and a lot of moving pieces. There you go. B, take it away with your last favorite project.
Last but not least, number 3 of my top 3 favorite projects in my freelance translator era is just the work that I've been able to do with Urban Outfitters. Urban Outfitters is an American company based in Philadelphia, but I worked with the Urban Outfitters UK division and taking care of their German copy for Germany. So there's a bunch of things. It's all online, so I don't have a visual aid. I'm going to put some imagery, you know, screenshots and stuff on screen so you guys can see it in the video. Basically, a lot of it has to do with snappy commercial copy, something like an email newsletter, or, you know, hey, here's our latest collection. Or a lot of what I did was push notifications. They go out at least once a day. So when it's like when I'm working with them, like that's always something that we have like a whole, you know, a whole, let's say like a Google Doc or Google Sheet ready to go with like a bunch of them. Depending on the day, depending on the season. Sometimes even something so specific like, okay, this week the weather is surprisingly nice, even though it's like the end of September. Let's take care, you know, let's take advantage of the last couple of sunshine, rays of sunshine, and then just like go out and wear that festival dress one more time, and just something that has to be really dynamic. So it's a little bit like, oof, let's get going, come on, like you have to stay, you know, have to keep up with the times, and that can be a bit, you know, hectic. But it's just so fun because I love fashion and all the colors and all the trends. And I remember my favorite was the Y2K. So anything that has to do with like the early 2000s, that's totally my vibe. I wish that we could all live in the 2000s again, early 2000s. And so whenever that kind of stuff came up and I saw how they combine and they give, not only do they describe like the clothing, the garments, but also the kind of lifestyle that goes with it. Like, why don't you combine this jacket with this bandana and, you know, have a fun Sunday out or go to this festival or whatever. It's one of the names, one of the fewer names of things where I, if I say to people Urban Outfitters, they usually know, especially in bigger cities or in the US, my family, my friends in the US, they know about Urban Outfitters. So it's really cool when I get to say that I worked on some of their German copy and translations, transcreation for the German market. So I've always really enjoyed that. Okay, that's a wrap. Those were 3 of my favorite projects from my 5 years of being a marketing translation business owner. If you have any questions or comments, obviously leave them right under Adi's video here on YouTube, but you can also reach me over on LinkedIn. You can send me an email. It'll all be down below in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and Adi, thank you so much for having me on the channel. You know what they say, 3 times the charm. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, B, again, for coming on the channel. Thanks to all of you for listening to our favorite projects. This is kind of, you know, this is cool. This is what you can look forward to if you join this profession, and these are always highlights. Like, I'm working on cool projects every year. Almost every month, kind of, but like some are just standing out. And when we were preparing for this video, these 3 came to mind immediately, even though I was not aware that these were my favorite projects at the time. But apparently, when I think back, these are the ones that come to mind. So sometimes while you're working on it, you're actually not aware that these will have a lasting impact. As B said, just check out all her links in the description. Reach out to her if you want to know more about especially marketing and transcreation. She is really an expert in that, so definitely use that opportunity to get in touch with her. Yeah, I see you next Monday with the next video of the Freelanceverse. Thanks for being here. Take care. Bye-bye.